Hey everyone, welcome to Saturday Night Popcorn. This is Jason.
And this is Kai, and we have another great discussion for you today. The movie of the day is Stand and Deliver from 1988. It's older, to say the least, but still want to give everyone a spoiler warning before we get into our discussion.
And it's based on a true story, so I guess you can always just look it up.
Yeah, just Google it, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, cool, I know."
But this is part of like a month that we do want to focus on Hispanic stories. Later down the road, we're going to kind of focus on primarily Mexican directors. And so I wanted to start off with Stand and Deliver because this is a movie that I've seen multiple times. But let me just give you a little summary of Stand and Deliver from 1988. Stand and Deliver is an inspiring drama based on the true story of Jaime Escalante, a high school mathematics teacher in East Los Angeles. Portrayed by Edward James Olmos, Escalante challenges the education system and societal expectations by teaching advanced calculus to a class of students deemed unlikely to succeed. Despite facing skepticism from colleagues and the struggles of his students, Escalante's unorthodox methods and unwavering belief in their potential led to a group of his students passing the rigorous advanced placement exam in calculus. The film explores themes of determination, education, and the transformative power of high expectations. Um, and I think that's like a very poignant kind of like summary of the movie. And
Yeah,
this is based off of true story. It's kind of very a subtle little like subtitle when the
yeah,
movie's starting. It says this is a true story. Um,
yeah. Because
and I
most
believe we looked it up. I think he's still alive too. I can't
okay,
remember. Yeah, that he's still around.
I do like that they were subtle about it being a true story because it seems like most films now that are based on true stories they make that like the forefront of it. Like, oh, this is based on a true story. You should watch it.
Yeah, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre was like it was like right in front of you.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you have it where it's like they start off with like I started watching that Purdue kind of medical or like prescription thing on Netflix, and
Hmm.
they start off with like a little scene that kind of like explains that this is a true story, but it's dramatized
Yeah.
for the media and stuff. So that we found out that a lot of things that they say they're based on a true story, but then it expands to like this
It's all
movie that we
bullshit.
watch.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. Like they do very small percentage of true, and then it's like, oh, let's
Yeah,
over dramatize this so
they
that
just get the guy's
people
name right,
actually,
and then they're like, "All right,
yeah,
we can go from there."
they get the theme like, okay, it's school related or hospital related, and then they just change everything else. It's like, okay,
Like based on a true story, right there.
it's like loosely based on a true story. It's more like it.
Well, it's funny because like we were talking about like what movies we are going to be watching for the month of March, and so I wanted to focus on kind of like hey, we've been having some like black and brown kind of like movies that we've been watching, and so
Yeah.
Stand and Deliver has I've seen it multiple times. And I told you it was kind of joking around with Patty downstairs too when we were watching it. It's like we used to watch it in my like high school math classes. Like they
Oh
would show
man.
it to us. And I don't know, it's because I grew up in the Mission District and stuff, and so like that was a primarily Hispanic Mexican kind of section of San Francisco. But it's like maybe because I was around a bunch of Mexicans and and they're like, hey, here's a story that can probably like get
Let's
you into
uplift
doing
you.
math and stuff
Yeah.
and everything. But I we used to watch it all the time, and I remember now watching it when just a couple of days ago, I was like, oh, like I still love this movie. And it's just because it's funny, it's quirky and stuff, and the portrayal of Edward James Olmos is like crazy. It's amazing.
What what got me seeing him? I didn't even realize he was the father in Mayans.
Oh, I haven't seen Mayans.
Oh, really? Yeah, I
No,
think he's in. Isn't he? He's in Sons too. I think,
is he?
unless I'm tripping. But
He's been in a lot of things. He's been in like
yeah,
Battlestar Galactica. He was in another kind of like American gang. He was in that movie American Me. Um,
which
but
is also
he,
L.A. based, right?
Yeah, it's sort of I think it's the start of like the LA based gang and stuff, and so but he portrays a lot of things, and
Yeah,
he's been and a lot of people saying that he was great in Battlestar Galactica. So like the sci-fi people know him as that person.
he is. I just double checked. He is the father.
Okay, I
Yeah,
now have to watch my ends.
yeah. That's a good ass show.
Yeah.
But and I don't know why. Like, because seeing him in, I know this is not Stand Deliver that I'm talking about, but seeing him in Mayans, I was like, I know I've seen his face, but I couldn't put two and two together. But then watching this, I was like, wait, that's the dad. And that's when they all came together. Like, oh shoot, that's the dad.
I don't know. The beginning of this movie like reminds me of like how the Mission District in San Francisco was, where it's like there was like paintings and murals and stuff all over the place. There was little stores that you would kind of go and get your candy and stuff. And I guess that's the struggles of gentrification stuff that like that stuff gets painted over. Um,
So that's what I like enjoyed about the film was the establishing of where they were. Like you
mhm,
saw in the beginning, like that was the whole beginning. The first couple of minutes was, hey, let's showcase this neighborhood without even telling you where we are. Like let's showcase this neighborhood. You get to see the distance from this neighborhood to downtown Los Angeles, which is well known for skyscrapers and where people shop and all that good stuff and buy food, which is gentrified and still kind of hoodish. But that's what I truly enjoyed. You were able to see what someone in that area of South Central Los Angeles how they lived. You saw
mhm.
the neighborhood shops. You saw how people dressed. You saw what they drove. So I truly enjoyed that aspect of the film.
And they kind of did that for every or like sort of the main students that they wanted to,
Hmm.
because they showed where they go home to and stuff, and
Yeah.
like one of the girls that needed to study, the mom would come home after working long hours and stuff, and it's like, hey, can you turn down the light and stuff because I want to go to
Oh
sleep.
yeah.
And so like
I
the
felt bad
struggles
for
of
her
that.
too.
Yeah. So stuff like that, like they showed that where like they show where this story is going to take place,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of then see where that's going to go, and then you see where these children, like it almost builds that like, okay, I get the teachers in that East LA high school where they're like, these children are not going to be able to learn calculus and
Yeah.
everything, but then you have Jaime Escalante that's like, hey, no, like
They're
that's
learning
the
this
reason
shit.
why like
Yeah.
they don't learn, because like you believe that they can't. I don't know.
It, yeah. So the establishing I truly enjoyed, but I couldn't get behind the acting.
Yeah.
That's yeah. And that's why my rating was so low. Like I love the story. I love that these were students that were counted out. Like no one believed that these students could learn this difficult subject because I went to school for engineering. Like I know how difficult calculus is, differential equations. It's not for the faint of heart, but for a teacher to come in and be like, "Hey, I know these students can learn this." Like I enjoyed the story behind this film, but watching the acting, I couldn't take it seriously. And so there was moments I was like, "Why would you be that over enthusiastic about this situation?" And I caught myself doing that a handful of times.
Yeah, you kind of see it's a different way, and granted, I was like, I turned to Patty. It's like I wonder how much did Edward James Olmos kind of like interact with the true Jaime Escalante, just
Hmm.
to get an understanding of like, was this a true portrayal of like how he kind of interacted with the students?
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of things that don't happen in schools anymore, where there was like that shaming aspect where he sat the children in front of the
Oh yeah.
classroom. And so I remember doing that in elementary school and stuff, that they would do that, where like kind of sit us in front to kind of shame you for not doing your homework
Or
or
when you
coming
show
in
up late
late.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that, but he does kind of come off as um like
Hard
Edward's
nosed.
kind of portrayal, like it's more of like whether or not he plays to the cholo, like he played into like the cholo kind of like East LA kind of like dudes that like walk around and stuff and
Yeah.
act like they're tough and everything. But it's like it's no different. Like this is like a brown savior movies. Like everyone kind of
Yeah.
talks about those white savior movies and
Yeah.
everything. And those things they're like all over the place and stuff. But this one,
And it's just as bad. Like they always
yeah,
have
where it's
somebody overacting or very enthusiastic about, and that's so. As I was watching it, as I was seeing the acting, I kept kind of thinking about the South Park episode where they portrayed this, and so I ended up finishing this and watching that episode of South Park because I was like, I remember the South Park episode, but let me see how well these two actually compare to one another. And at least acting wise, like Cartman did his thing, which is a terrible comparison, but yeah, Cartman did his thing.
I forget about that movie. It's like now I kind of want to watch that. But I guess it's like, yeah, it's like nowadays it's kind of like difficult because like in all of these savior based movies where it's like
Mhm.
everything's like kind of over exaggerated and
Yeah.
stuff. And whether or not it's like more so it's like I would like to like kind of look up as to whether or not like yes w- he probably did that in his real teaching kind of career and stuff,
Mhm.
but he was probably like I like what else could I have done and everything to kind of get on their level. That's
Yeah.
like a fairly like newer kind of like saying in like the education system. You got to get on their level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. They have to feel connected to you or feel like you're one of them type of thing.
yeah. So I think he kind of understood the kind of like expectations that are placed on them,
Yeah.
maybe the low expectations, but also where they came from because he was probably one of the lucky ones to kind of like he was smart and
And
he
got out of it.
understood
Hmm.
math he says it math is the great equalizer and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the story, yeah, I think you're correct where it's like the story can get lost on someone that doesn't know the story when watching this movie because you're almost distracted by like how over the top
Yeah.
his kind of like everything too. It's like I go back to that cholo thing where like the way he kind of like portrays that, and then the dude Angel portrays it where it's like
Yeah.
but that was probably part of the time where like you did have people like that sitting in the back of classrooms and stuff and all that, and so and you probably still do, you never know.
I had kids like that. I had kids that would like, hey, I got to go to the bathroom, and then they were selling weed.
Yeah.
So there's definitely kids that still do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So stuff like that does happen. I can see that as a negative actually. That especially people that don't know that like you're recommending this to them. They're like,
Hmm.
"Hey, watch this. This is pretty it's a inspiring story."
Yeah.
But then they'll be like, "Oh, like I can see where they can come out of it like you where it's like, well, you're almost distracted by like how like over the top
Yeah.
his sayings and stuff and the way he act and his mannerisms, all of them too." And I wonder if uh like the rest of the children, I wonder if they were like actual actors or like were
So
they just like people.
that's what I was wondering also. And I meant to ask if you knew, and I guess this is the perfect time, but it sounds like you don't know either. But it seemed like Lou Diamond Phillips, he kind of got through it. Like he's an actor now, he's well known. But it seemed like a majority of them were just kids or people from that area. Some of them, I know that's a trope in films that high school students are normally the actors are like 30 years old playing 16. But in this, like some of these people looked like they were legit 30 sitting in a high school class. And I was like, what is going on? So I
Hey,
think I don't know if they were trained actors.
but then also sometimes you look at like the like those like random videos you see on like Reddit where like oh it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
video of high schools in like 1980 and you're like holy man these are grown grown
Yes.
people.
Full facial hair. They got hair on their back. Well, even like I've seen a handful on social media of like high school in 2006 or 2008. And I'm like, shit, I was in high school then. I don't remember looking that old.
No.
Say,
No,
what school
I
was
haven't.
that? Like,
So, they were
so
getting better
it messes
food.
you up. It gotta be. Yeah.
I don't know, but I think for me, what stands out, I think no matter what, I think you and me both, the story is very
Yeah.
invigorating. I was like, I want to like go take a math class. Like, I
No, you
want to do
don't.
math,
Don't do it.
and no, I can do
Don't
it,
do
man. I'm gonna
it. I know
like
you can do
strive.
it, but just don't. Take it for someone that took more than enough math classes. Don't go back to it.
I'm
It's
gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna do a little chalkboard on my wall right here. I'm gonna start doing math. I'm gonna beautiful minded over here. But I think no matter what, yeah, the stories are very uh kind of like inspiring. I think this movie also like reminds me of like the look and feel of the Jennifer Lopez Selena,
mm,
where it you do where you have it where you go to like the restaurant where Jaime Escalante in one of the scenes is going to a restaurant to kind of like convince the owner, the father of one of the
the
students, to like
student.
have her go back to math class because the father was like, no, I can use her hands here and or her work here working at the family restaurant than going to school and learning something. And it was like two sides of the coin where like Jaime like explained like if she stays here at the restaurant, all she's gonna do is get fat and kind of like live a boring life. And then he's
Yeah.
like, I'm afraid that she's gonna go and get pregnant and stuff, or like think too like they were all like it was so weird like how they like said
Yeah.
like,
The
oh, you can't
interaction
be
was
smart.
strange. And then the father was like, okay, well, yeah, she's back in school now. Like the
Yeah,
next
right.
day.
It's like, okay, we thought about it.
But seeing like
I don't know, but
seeing
go
those
ahead.
stories of those students was sad. Like I understand they're in. Well, okay, I can't say that. Like seeing the stories was sad, but seeing how Jaime was willing to put forth all this energy to help these students, but the school system was still like, nah, we don't trust these kids. Like we don't think that all of these kids could have passed this test because of where they're from. And there's probably plenty of stories out there similar to this, but to see it in movie form, it just made it even worse. Like, how can you not believe a group of kids that worked their ass off, did summer classes that they didn't have to do in order to put forth this effort and get ahead in life, and you still want them to retake a test because you feel that they weren't smart enough? That was crazy to me.
Yeah, and it's like like we said that a lot going through the movies that we watch for Black History Month, where it's like
Yeah,
those stories are always getting told and are still being told today. And weirdly enough, probably for Black and brown people, where it's like you're like, oh, you can't do that because it's like, oh, because like it's said throughout the movie too, because like you're this shade of color
yeah,
or you come from this background and stuff. And even Patty and I were like talking about it's like yes, Latino people are like expected to be like labor people, like oh like doing manual labor, where it's like
hmm
oh like something using your mind. Oh, you can't do that
it's
and
too
everything.
difficult
Like
for you.
yeah, don't even try and everything. And it's like yeah, it's very sad that the high
Yeah,
school and the chair of the math department is like, no, don't disappoint these children.
like come on, man. Like these kids are working their asses off. Like what are you talking about?
That's what I want to ask you. Like, what
Yeah,
in Jaime Escalante's kind of like mind, because they were like the people investigating the whether or not the students cheated, because
they were black and
basically
brown.
they all got passing scores, all 18 of
Yeah,
them. And
yeah,
then the reason why they
twice.
thought they cheated was that they had the exact same problems wrong,
Hmm.
right? So they were like, oh, they must have cheated and stuff.
Yeah.
So so then what do you think was the best play? Was it better because like Jaime was like, no, like I'm not going to justify you calling them cheaters by
Yeah.
having them retake the test because everyone's still going to believe that they cheated.
Hmm.
But what is the best option was to retake? I'm assuming because that's what happened.
Yeah, I think so because there's really no way to there was no way to convince them. It's like, hey, he even came out and said, hey, I was their teacher. I taught all of these students, so all of their mistakes were the same because I taught that one or those areas incorrectly or a way that they didn't truly understand. So they all got the same questions wrong. Because you've been in those SAT and those nonsense school tests, like there's always somebody walking around. Somebody
Hmm.
would have noticed, hey, what note are you passing? Like, what are you doing? You're cheating. Like, they would have got called out quick because they're very strict in those tests. So for them, yeah, I think the best way to handle it was them retaking it. It sucks that they had to retake it, and it was like weeks later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the best course of action.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about afterwards. It's like, all right, like, yeah, because if he would have never told them to retake it, they would have just had their grades or their scores invalidated,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah,
and then they live like that. And it's
and it
like,
would have
okay,
ruined like it would have ruined the momentum he set for them because they
hmm,
were all on this high of like everyone counted me out. Nobody believed we can do this, but all 18 of us passed this test. And then they're celebrating, and then the rug is just pulled from under them. So I think we don't know what all of these students are doing currently, but that for sure would have changed the course of their lives if their tests weren't validated.
hmm,
So I
hmm,
think the best way was for them to retake it, pass it again, like all of them did, so that they can have that momentum back. Like, okay, we showed you that we could pass. We passed it twice. There's no way of you taking this back from us. Now we can take this this knowledge and go to college or use it for whatever we want to do in the future.
yeah, and it's like you kind of highlighted the establishing shot in the beginning, where I enjoyed that they focused on showing the test process or the
Yeah,
test taking process for the second one, where
yeah,
it's like you kind of like have already built up this like anxiety of like, oh, now all eyes are going to be on them, and so that second pass through for the AP exam, you're having a lot of these
all the
shots
close
showing that
ups.
they're like working through the problems. They're making sure that they're doing everything. You have the one shot that like the one girl that was not even going to go back to math class needs to leave early, but then she still passes. It's like, yeah, like I don't
But
know. It's I really enjoyed that because like you
yeah,
you you kind of like brushed over the first one because you knew that there was this conflict that they were going to be called out as cheaters or their scores invalidated, and then they go through this process to retake the exam and then end up just passing it anyways and stuff. And
yeah.
so and probably I don't know. And also like I wonder if like they were like, because he said I want their initial scores reinstated, that the
Hmm.
second exam never happened basically.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like what were the first exams like much better and stuff like.
Hey, they still did well the second time around though. But
Yeah,
I,
they
I
still pass
do,
either way, all of
yeah,
them.
I do like how they handled the filming of the second test because you were
Mhm.
able to see the anxiety of taking a test and having somebody like watching over your shoulder, and then the as the students were taking it, some of them were erasing like like it
Yeah.
made me feel like I was taking the test with them because I remember those moments of like you finish a question, you're like, oh, I killed that, and then you look at the multiple choice and you're like, it's not even on there. What was I thinking? So you got to go back and erase it. Well, even the first as they were starting the testing process of them having to fill out their race, which
Uh-huh.
still makes absolutely no sense. Like, why do you need to know what race I am? Like, let me just take the test. Who cares?
There's a lot of weird things nowadays too. It's like even back then, yeah, like the race, like they like you filled in the bubble for like what race
Hmm.
you were. But then they state that the people were anonymous when they were scoring this.
Yeah.
But it's like if you already are taking the data of like their race, that means it goes into the system when it's scoring.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily a blind scoring system, basically.
Yeah.
So
And they see their
it,
names.
yeah,
You're
see
like,
their
oh
names,
yeah,
yeah,
what?
see their
Like,
surnames and all this stuff and
mm-hmm.
everything. I don't know. Where it's just like Patty and I were talking about. It's like what we remember going into. I think most black and brown people would remember going into proctor test, and
Yeah.
like the day before you go into like an SAT, like everyone announces like don't give them a reason to say that you cheated.
Yeah.
And do they say that to predominantly white classes? Like they're probably like, no,
I
just
don't
go and do it
know.
and stuff. Like no one's gonna
Yeah.
like really like it, that's a weird subtle where you're like you is that like racism that we
Like,
experience?
did you tell them that too, or just me? Like, I need to know. Yeah, that always going through school. That's something that always was on the back of my mind. Like, why? Just the race thing. Like, why do you need to know my race? Like, let me just take the test. Who cares what I look like or what my name is? Well, what my name is, so you can give it back to me. But that shouldn't be a factor in this. It should be like,
Mhm.
hey, did I get 1 through 100 correct, or did I get them wrong? Like, give me my grade.
Yeah, right. I don't know. In terms of we kind of already talked about like what we liked and disliked about
Yeah.
this movie. In terms of uh, recommending this movie, do you like who do you recommend this movie to? It's very hard. I think for me on my end, it's
Yeah.
very hard.
Same here. Like, I get my rating for this film doesn't reflect how good this story was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know who I would recommend it to, but I think it would be something that should be on every movie lover's list. Like, as because it took this was the first time I'd seen it. I knew of it for years. I'd seen the South Park episode where they basically recreate this and throw some fluff into it, but I'd never seen the movie. And yeah, I think it would just be something that movie lovers should have on their list. It has a great story. The acting is a little iffy, but it's something people should just watch.
Yeah, I think for me, where it's like I think most my family, like Patty, said that it was like the first time she's seen this movie, but then
Mm.
she texted my family and was like, "Oh, has anyone ever seen Stand and Deliver?" And all my whole family was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
we've seen it." Like, and so and primarily like myself and my brothers went
you
to the
saw it at
same
school, right?
schools
Yeah,
as my parents and stuff, so we kind of had the same kind of like interactions and stuff. Uh, so I think I would recommend this to anybody that enjoys those like white savior movies. Those ones that
mm.
like like if they I forget like the one like the dance one and everything, and there's like some crazy
Oh,
white savior ones. I don't know.
yeah. I was
But
thinking Finding Forrester.
oh, that
With
one, yeah, that's a
yeah,
yeah, that's an
that's
interesting
like a
one. But
low key. That's like a low key one.
yeah, so I guess that's like similar to this one, where it's like you just change the race of somebody and stuff, and then it's like you kind
Yeah,
of have the same story.
it's the
But
same situation going. People going through.
yeah, so it's like if you ever find anybody that like enjoys those movies, they're definitely gonna enjoy this one because it's a very
Yeah,
inspiring movie and stuff. And but most of the Hispanic people around me have seen this. They would be like, yeah, like I was in math class too, and they showed it to us on one day.
I've seen this numerous times.
But my rating to this, I think it's very nostalgia based.
Hmm.
Because I gave this a 4 because 4 stars out of 5. I think it is very nostalgia based and stuff. Is I've always enjoyed this movie, and it's because I've seen it so many times and everything, and and the whole story itself is very invigorating. It made me want to look at math and stuff. But what you end up giving it?
I gave it a 2. So if I was to rate it just based on the story, I would give it a like a 3.5 or a 4.
Hmm.
But to take in the whole film, I gave it a 2 because there were moments where I was like, okay, this is dragging on, and where did this person go? This person kind of just disappeared in the film. So I just had a handful of times throughout watching it where I questioned things. So I gave it a lower rating. Story, amazing. Overall movie, yeah, I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, there's a lot to be. I wonder, like, do they like remake this?
It's gonna.
Nah, I
You
think,
already know it's gonna happen. Yeah, it's
eh,
gonna happen.
but yeah, I think it would take away the nostalgia feeling where it's like this one. I think is
Yeah,
like a perfect little time capsule for the time. Um, but yeah, so all right, Kai, you want to take us out?
yeah. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Saturday Night Popcorn. I'm Kai.
And I'm Jason, and we'll be back next week with another one. And please let us know if you've seen this movie, Stand and Deliver, in 1988. In the comments below, if you liked it, disliked it, what you think about it. And please like and subscribe to Saturday Night Popcorn on YouTube for more videos like this.